1, 2, hook, and the right 4.
Beaten to the punch. In a row about funding, it seems the Chancellor has delivered a blow to the Education Secretary's ambitions.
Faster, man! Faster, 5!
Trying a new sport today, children in Nottingham were enjoying the break from school. But how to help them catch up on learning lost in lockdown? The government has had to defend its announcement of £1 billion for tutoring and £250 million for teacher training, far less than was expected. And far less than was recommended by this man.
That creates great opportunities for deep learning.
Sir Kevan Collins, the government's own catch-up czar, who tonight announced his resignation. In a letter to the Prime Minister, he said,
I do not believe it is credible that a successful recovery can be achieved with a programme of support of this size. I believe the settlement provided will define the international standard of England's education system for years to come.
It's understood that as late as last week, there are arguments within government about much more ambitious plans, with the DFE asking for much more money. But those ideas were derailed when the Treasury refused to sign off on it. As a result, today's announcement falls far short of the £13.5 billion that the Education Policy Institute says is needed. They argue that it amounts to just £50 per child per year.
It's way too little. It's really disappointing that the 15 billion that was recommended has turned out to be 1.4 billion. We're very, very concerned at the impact that such a small amount would or could have.
But what about the government's argument that, they've had to spend billions during this pandemic, so they are spending what they can afford?
They have reneged on a whole number of promises that they made to education in terms of supporting the costs of COVID for schools, and now they are failing to give our young people what they really, really need in terms of recovery.
During a series of interviews today, although not with this programme, Gavin Williamson struggled to explain the discrepancy between what was announced and what was recommended. So how does education match up to other departments? Well, so far, government spending on COVID in total is around £345 billion. That includes £104 billion for employment support like the furlough scheme, £70.4 billion on the NHS and £12.8 billion for rail services. In comparison, today's announcement brings education spending to £3.1 billion.
Of course, there's going to be more coming down the track, but don't forget this is a huge amount that we're spending on top of the 14 billion that we spent as soon as we came in to increase the funding for primary school children, for secondary school children, make sure that every teacher started on a starting salary of £30,000. What we're now doing is the biggest tutoring programme anywhere in the world.
That tutoring will be outsourced to a Dutch firm, Randstad. But the Prime Minister's world-beating claim was disputed by the Education Policy Institute, which said America is spending £1,600 per child and the Netherlands £2,500. 9-year-old Majd is in year 4.
What was lockdown like for you?
I don't know, kind of like a holiday. That's what it felt like at least.
Is there anything that you feel you need help catching up on, or did you fall behind on anything?
Maybe a few corners in maths.
And are you worried about your son falling behind?
Yeah.
What are the areas that you're most worried about?
It's not just the education part, it's about the social interaction with the friends and feeling like physically you are there in school.
What about the idea of tutoring? Is that a good idea?
Yes, I do agree with that, yeah.
The government tonight insisted it is on course to make sure no child is left behind. But the money they announced is a tenth of what their own catch-up commissioner believed was needed. As he stepped down, Sir Kevan said a half-hearted approach risks failing hundreds of thousands of pupils. Darshna Soni, Channel 4 News, Nottingham.